Hey, welcome to my channel. In this video, I am going to be sharing all the Paynes greys that I have. I will first be swatching them out without the name so that you can, in a non-biased way, pick your favorites. And then after that, I am going to be swatching them out again, but this time highlighting the names, the pigments, and everything else. I have all the links and timestamps in the description, but to start things off with, I think it would be good to highlight the inspiration behind this video, and that is my Ko-fi members. Ko-fi is a place where I share exclusive videos, art challenges, paint parties, resources, chat with members, and just so much more. And my membership just turned 1, so I wanted to celebrate with some Happy Mail. This led me to comparisons of one of my favorite colors, Paynes Grey, and then later on this video. So if you're interested in joining my membership, if becoming a Ko-fi member, then I'll leave the link down below and I would love to paint with you. As you may know, I love making swatch cards, so as well as making swatch cards for this exercise, I decided to make some swatch cards for my Ko-fi members as well, so that you can also swatch your own paint, and I may be including some extra Happy Mail as well. For now, let's start with some stunning swatches, and as we go through them, feel free to share in the comments what is your current favorite Paynes grey, and if there's one that catches your eye in this video, then feel free to share that as well. I have numbered them at first and then I will share the names later on. Probably as a shock to no one else but me. I have 12 different Paynes greys, and I've included a bonus grey that isn't technically a Paynes grey but looks very Paynes grey-esque to me. So the ones that I've included in this video will include a Van Gogh, Daniel Smith, Michael Hardin, Roman Schmall, Jackson's, Winsor & Newton Cotman and Winsor & Newton Professional range, Core, Rembrandt and Holbein. Mystery swatch number 1 is an absolutely beautiful blue leaning Paynes grey. It contains PB15, PBK6 and PV19. It is non-granulating, and I dare you to guess what it is. The only con that I would mention about this one is just that there's quite a significant drying shift, so as you continue to watch it through the video, you'll see it change quite a lot. It'll get less blue and less vibrant. This second Paynes grey contains PBK6 and PB15. It's a little bit moodier. It's again non-granulating. I would probably describe it as a neutral grey, so not blue leaning and not warm. I would be super curious and very impressed if you could guess which Paynes grey was which. Next, we have another non-granulating Paynes grey. This one is made up of PBK6, PB15 and PR122, which is slightly different compared to all the other Paynes greys that we're going to be looking at. It is blue leaning more so than the number 2, but not as much as number 1. And although a lot of them are looking granulating at the moment, when they dry in themselves, you'll be able to see that actually they dry quite flat and in a more even way. Now, number 4 is probably the most pigmented out of all of them. I took just the tiniest bit of paint, but it was so dark, so deep, so rich. It is made of PB15-3, PBK7 and PV19. And as you can see, a little goes a long way. It's a beautiful grey and probably the most black grey out of all the options thus far. Number 5 is made up of PBK7, PB29 and PB15. It's a grey, like a run-of-the-mill, middle, not blue-leaning kind of grey. It's got a slight hint of granulation when it dries, more so than the others that we've looked at, but again, it's really lovely. And then we have this beautiful, stunning Paynes grey. This is made up of PB15-1, PV19 and PBK7, and it's very beautiful, a versatile kind of grey. I'm looking at the swatches as I'm talking to you and just trying to see. I was able to get a really nice smooth wash, but then I was also able to get the tiniest bit of granulation when I added lots of water, so it was very versatile. It's almost like a little bit of a purpley grey. Then next, for number 7, we have this beautiful deep and rich grey, which is non-granulating, contains PBK9, PB27 and PR264. And again, I'm finding that most of the Paynes greys have quite a significant drying shift, but it's good to see them in their wet form and then just keep an eye for later. Now we have number 8. This is another beautiful grey, which is made up of PB29, PBR7 and PV19. This does granulate, does have like really lovely hints of purple in it, and is absolutely stunning. Now this is number 9. It is made up of PBK9, PB29 and PY42. It's a granulating Paynes grey, nice, rich, beautiful and cool leaning. I really do feel like this kind of video will only make sense to us because they're all called Paynes grey, but they all look so different, and I can see why people have their favorite Paynes grey. It's going to be a tricky one for me to actually pick one, but this one that I'm swatching now is again beautiful Paynes grey. It's made up of PB29 and PBK9, and it is also granulating and very much running for, you know, favorites. Then we have a non-granulating Paynes grey, which is made up of PBK6 and PV19. How do you use your Paynes grey? Because this exercise definitely had me wondering how I can best utilize all the different types of Paynes greys. I tend to use them for mixing, especially when I am mixing to make shadows, whether it be that I'm adding a little bit of blue to them, or whether it be that I'm adding them to green to like make my shadows in my foliage darker. That tends to be primarily how I use them, even though they are absolutely beautiful colors that I would use on their own. Now we have a number 12, and this is made up of PBK6 and PB27, and it is beautiful. It was actually a gift, so it's not one that is in my main collection, but it's one that I am so glad I get to experience. And last but certainly not least, we have number 13, which is made up of PB15-1, PBK7 and PV19, and again is absolutely stunning. Both of these are also non-granulating. Now when I'm talking about their granulation, I am actually more so referring to what I am observing. I'm not referencing what the company has said about them at all. So of course take it with a pinch of salt. It may be that if you add more or less water, you may get different effects. But from swatching them twice and having worked with them for a while, this is my impression. It's time for the spoilers, but before I tell you, don't forget to hit the like button and to consider subscribing if you want to see more videos like this. And also let me know what was your favorite, number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 or 13. But with no further ado, let's swatch them again. In no particular order, we start with number 1, which is the Winsor & Newton Professional Paynes Grey. It's made up of PB15, PBK6 and PV19. It's rated light fastness 2, and it is the bluest Paynes Grey that we have out of all of the ones that I have seen so far. It's really beautiful and non-granulating. And it's going to be included in the dot card that I'm sending out for Happy Mail. Now number 2, we have Rembrandt. It is made up of PBK6 and PB15. It's light fastness rated 1. It is non-granulating, and it is again really beautiful. I'd say it's less blue leaning, more leaning towards neutral, certainly when compared to the Winsor & Newton one. And this will also be included in the Happy Mail. Now next we have Holbein, which is number 3. It's made up of PBK6, PB15 and PR122. It is non-granulating and rated 3 stars for light fastness. Next we have Core. Now this is probably the darkest one that I mentioned, like a little really went a long way. It's made up of PB15-3, PBK7 and PV19. It is really beautiful, really nice, dark, moody, and in true Core fashion runs and moves around on the page, and will be part of the Happy Mail that's going out as well. Now number 5 is another Winsor & Newton, but this time the Cotman range, which is the student range. It's made up of PBK7, PB29 and PB15, and this has the slight hint of granulation. Certainly when you start adding lots of water to it, it's nowhere near as blue leaning as its professional counterpart, but it's still really beautiful. Next we have number 6, which is the Jackson's Paynes Grey. It's made up of PB15-1, PV19 and PBK7, and this is such a beautiful Paynes Grey as well. It is kind of bluey, purpley leaning to my eye at the very least. It's technically, to my eye, again, non-granulating, but when I added lots and lots of water, I could see a little bit of separation, but it's a really nice Paynes Grey. Next we have a Roman Schmall, which is a number 7. It's PBK9, PB27 and PR264. So it's made up of really different pigments in comparison to the other ones because it includes a Prussian blue as well as a red. Beautiful color. Now this is a bit of a red herring This one is a Roman Schmall Shadow Grey. It is made up of PB29, PBR7 and PV19, and like the Roman Schmall Paynes Grey, it's rated 8 out of 8 light fastness. It's really beautiful, and although technically I accept that it's not a Paynes Grey, I do feel like it's quite Paynes Grey-esque, just more violet than all the others that we have seen. But certainly when it dries, it really does resemble the other Paynes Greys. So I'm kind of curious if you were able to tell it apart from the others, but yeah, certainly one of my favorite greys. Next, we have number 9, which is Michael Harding Paynes Grey. It's made up of PBK9, PB29 and PY42. And I think that this is actually one of the most granulating Paynes Greys that we have. There is again quite a significant dry shift, so I will show you what it's like when it is dry. But yeah, it's a nice grey. Next, we have Daniel Smith, and this is made up of PB29 and PBK9. It is granulating. It is, to me, I know there's no violet in it, but it does look a little bit violetish, but certainly a bit blue leaning as well. And this is one of my favorite Paynes Greys as well. It's just one that I go back to time and time again. Following that, number 11 is the Van Gogh, which is made up of PBK6 as well as PV19, a really nice non-granulating neutral Paynes Grey. It is worth noting that although it has different pigments, it is technically the student grade version of the Rembrandt, which is made up of PBK6 and PB15 and is number 2 on our swatch card. Next, we'll swatch out my gifts. So first we have Da Vinci, which is number 12. This is made up of PBK6 as well as PB27, and it's certainly an interesting one. Initially, I thought it was blue leaning, but the more I started looking at it, the more it's like bluey greeny leaning. It's excellent light fastness, and it is a really beautiful Paynes Grey, one that I find quite different to the others that we've swatched out thus far. And then last but not least, we have the Paynes Grey by Sennelier. This is made up of PB15-1, PBK7 as well as PV19. It is a non-granulating and again really beautiful. Now, it's not a coincidence that I put it where I put it, because I wanted us to be able to see it next to the Jacksons, which is just to the left of it, so that we could compare. They are made up of the same pigments, and there are rumors of course about them having been made by the same place, but I'm just curious if you can observe a difference. To me, I find that the Jacksons one is actually more blue leaning, and I actually tend to prefer it. I find that the Sennelier one is slightly more neutral. And that completes my collection. 12 different brands, 13 beautiful greys. And honestly, it is a struggle to pick a favorite because they are all so different and all so wonderful. I do think that it's very much dependent on what I plan on using them for. So some I would reach for if I want to mix shadows or mix certain colors. Some I would want to use just on their own, as they are very, very beautiful. If you had to twist my arm, I would say that I love the Daniel Smith Paynes Grey. That's probably one of my go-tos, but I also do love the Winsor & Newton Professional Paynes Grey because it is very blue leaning. I am stuck and in love with Roman Schmall's Shadow Grey, and that's one that I keep going back to time and time again. And if I wanted a more, and also the Jacksons and the Sennelier, I love both of them. In fact, I just love all of them. I think that's the general crux of the matter. I love Paynes Grey. If you're still watching, then you are a real MVP, and I really, really, really appreciate you. Let me know that you're still watching by telling me your favorite Paynes Grey, if you have one, both one from personal use as well as what is your favorite Paynes Grey having seen this video. A super special thank you to all my Ko-fi members. You have been absolutely amazing, and I'm so grateful for the year that we have had together. As I have mentioned, the Happy Mail will be with you soon, and as I have strongly hinted, it will include dot cards as well as swatch cards and maybe something else too. If you have enjoyed this video, then you will definitely love these series of next ones, including one where I share the top 30 Roman Schmall watercolors as picked by you and myself. And if you're a Ko-fi member, I'll leave a link down below in the description where I share why I picked my main colors in my Roman Schmall palette. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week. Bye.